He was perfection in human form, sculpted muscles, unmatched arrogance, and a presence so intense that crowds loved to hate him. Rick Rude didn't just wrestle opponents. He humiliated them. Every pose, every glare, every movement screamed dominance. But behind the flawless body and supreme confidence was a man quietly destroying himself. Steroids, painkillers, injuries, and unbearable pressure turned perfection into poison. At only 40 years old, Rick Rude was found dead. No dramatic collapse in the ring, no farewell, just silence. Was it natural? Or was Rick Rude another victim of an era that demanded impossible bodies and ignored deadly consequences? Tonight, we expose the unnatural and mysterious death of Rick Rude, a story of obsession, addiction, pain, and the dark price of perfection. Rick Rude was born Richard Irwin Rude on December 7, 1958, in St. Peter, Minnesota, a place far removed from bright lights and wrestling superstardom. From a young age, Rick was obsessed with strength, appearance, and dominance. He wasn't content being average. Weightlifting became his identity, his therapy, and his obsession. Long before steroids entered the conversation, Rick was already pushing his body harder than most men ever would. He believed perfection was earned through pain, a belief that would later define both his success and his destruction. When wrestling fans were introduced to Ravishing Rick Rude, they weren't just seeing a heel. They were witnessing a psychological weapon. Rick Rude used his body as a tool of intimidation and humiliation. He mocked audiences, insulted local fans, and posed arrogantly over fallen opponents. His physique was unreal. Wide shoulders, shredded abs, explosive power. But maintaining that body came at a terrible cost. In an era with no wellness policies, extreme steroid use was normalized, encouraged, and often expected. Rick Rude didn't just participate, he pushed the limits. Rick Rude's wrestling style was stiff, intense, and unforgiving. He hit harder than most, absorbed punishment without complaint, and worked through injuries that should have ended careers. Torn muscles, spinal damage, joint injuries, Rick ignored them all. Painkillers became routine. Injections became normal. Recovery became secondary to performance. His body looked perfect on the outside, but inside it was breaking down rapidly. One of the most pivotal moments in Rick Rude's life came with a devastating back and spinal injury, reportedly suffered during a match involving a risky dive. The damage was severe, career-altering. Doctors warned him. Surgery followed. But Rick Rude refused to accept weakness. Steroids, prescribed medication, and painkillers became a daily reality. His body was no longer healing. It was being chemically held together. Rick Rude later admitted to heavy steroid use, a decision deeply rooted in the culture of wrestling at the time. Steroids didn't just change his muscles, they affected his heart, liver, hormones, and mental health. Combined with painkillers and post-surgery medication, Rick's internal organs were under constant assault. Forced into early retirement due to injuries, Rick Rude struggled deeply. Wrestling had been his identity. Without it, depression and physical pain took over. He continued training, continued using substances to manage pain and maintain his image. The perfectionist could not accept decline. His body was aging rapidly, faster than his mind could accept. On April 20th, 1999, Rick Rude was found dead in his home in Alpharetta, Georgia. He was only 40 years old. The official cause of death was heart failure, reportedly linked to mixed medications and long-term steroid damage. No overdose headlines, no scandal. Just another wrestling legend gone far too soon. Fans were left stunned. How could a man who looked so powerful die so suddenly? Rick Rude's death feels unnatural because it was preventable. His heart didn't fail overnight. It was weakened over years of chemical abuse, untreated stress, and relentless physical pressure. He didn't die because he was weak. He died because he chased perfection in an industry that never told him to stop. Rick Rude remains one of the greatest heels in wrestling history, respected, feared, and unforgettable. Inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2017, His influence still shapes wrestling characters today. But his legacy is also a warning, a reminder that perfection can be deadly. Rick Rude built a body the world admired, but paid for it with his life. His story is not just about death, it's about obsession, expectation, and the hidden cost of entertainment. Remember Rick Rude not just as ravishing, but as a man who gave everything to be perfect, even when perfection killed him.